So, a couple of scenes here. The first scene, I'm inside of a ship, and the ship is sinking, and it's a huge ship, and it's going down, and I can see light up. And with me is someone. There's someone with me who is faceless, but they look like my wife, and they're right behind me. And we're getting out of this ship, and we're jumping kind of from medical or metal equipment, one item to another, jumping up pipes, and we're scrambling up out of this ship because there's light at the as it's sinking, there's light back where the propeller would be. So that's scene one, and then the next one, we're inside of a covered dry dock, and there's a ship that's leaving the dry dock, and it's dark inside the dry dock, but it's going out into the light, and it's a much smaller ship, and we both jump into the water and we follow behind it, and we are swimming really close to catch up to it. And the thought in my head is, if they back up, the the prop will tear us to pieces, but we just keep going. And then the third scene is, there's a big ship, and it's out in the middle of the water with nothing around, and it's very bright. And it's sitting way up out of the water. And so it's sitting up so far out of the water that, like on cargo ships, you can see that kind of bulb thing at the front where they keep sonar and different instrumentation. And it also helps the ship be more efficient as it goes through, because it breaks the water. So it's so far up out of the water, there's not very much weight in it, that you can see all of that, and you can see what's typically below the water line. So I see all of that, and I hear Ronald Reagan's voice, and it says, the weakest part of the ship is at the water line. And then fourth scene, I'm sitting on the edge of a cliff looking out into the water, and it's at night and it's dark, and I see the most massive ship ever. And it's dark, and it's like a cargo ship with armor on it. The stuff on the decks, it's all armored. It's gray and black, and it's so big. For the whole time I'm watching it, I just see ship going by. I never see the beginning of the ship, and I never see the end of the ship.
Wow.
And that's it.
Okay. So 4 scenes. The first scene, you it's your wife, but she's faceless, and slightly behind you, are trying to escape from a sinking ship that's going straight down. And you're going from metal to metal, just trying to go up, because you can see where the propeller, the bottom of the ship, is actually straight up. There's light, and that's the way out. And that scene shifts. Now you're inside of a dry dock, and there's a smaller ship than the one you were just in. Again, you and your wife. Smaller ship, and it's leaving the dry dock. And so you jump into the water and begin to chase it. And you're chasing after it so close that you're coming towards the back where the propeller is. And the thought comes, if they back up, that's going to tear us to pieces. But you keep on pursuing it. Next scene was, boy, now I'm remembering the fourth scene, but I can't remember the third scene.
The ship out of the water.
The ship that was out of the water, that's right. And Ronald Reagan's voice, that the weakest part of the ship is where the water line is. And so it's, again, a large ship, but it's so little weight to it that it's up out of the water most of the way you can see, much more than what you should be able to see of the ship. And that's when you hear Ronald Reagan's voice saying, the weakest part of the ship is where the water line is. And then the third scene, you're on a cliff on the shore, looking out at the water. But it's dark, nighttime, and there's this big, black, dark ship. And it's going by, and you never saw the beginning, you never see the end. It's just going. This thing is massive, huge. End of dream.
Yep.
Okay, very good. So what would you title this dream?
Big ships.
Big ships, okay? Who or what is the focus of the dream? The dreamer. Yes. This is an interesting dream One of the things that we talk about in the Understanding Dreams and Visions course is that when you're taking a look at the dream, when you're trying to figure out the focus, the first thing you want to figure out is, okay, so the dreamer, were they observing the dream? Were they participating? Or were they the focus? And here you have in this dream, you have two scenes where they're participating focus, and you have two scenes where they're just observing. And so it becomes an interesting dream. But what that tells you is that this is what we call an extrinsic dream, which means it's not really about the dreamer, but it is about something that's going to affect them, because they're participating, because it's him and his wife, they're having equal activity. So that's why you would say participating. If only one of them, then the dreamer would be the focus. But because there's more than one person with equal activity, then it's participating. So it's about a group that he's a part of. But it's going to have some effect on him, but more he's going to see this happen. So that's the focus part. But for ease, we're going to say the dreamer is the focus, because that's the only thing that is consistent in all four of the scenes to be able to look at the dream. So let's take a look at the first scene. So what would we call this ship? Titanic. We'll call it sinking ship. Sinking ship. Anything important? Right? Right, the light. What else? Right. I'm just going to write escape for that. Okay. Second scene. What do we call this ship? Want to call it ship launch? Because it's just leaving the dry dock? It's a place where they get the ship out of water so that it's either when they're building it, repairing it, whatever they need to do. So yeah, it kind of gets out of, it's usually on the edge of the water, but it gets it out of the water so they can get to all of it, repair any holes, but it's dry, but it's resting. Yeah. So we've got the dry dock. Then one other. Yeah, and I'm going to put chase. And we'll include in the chase that thought of, this thing backs up, we're in trouble. What do we call this third one? Yeah, levitating ship. Yeah. Empty ship. So what are our details off of this one? The water line. Right, we'll include that. Means it's just out of water. What else was important?
The voice, President Reagan's voice, and what he said.
Ronald Reagan. We'll include in that that he said the water line is the weakest point. Okay? Number 4. And I'm going to write huge because it's got less letters. What's important about this one? Yeah, so well, let's put unseen, beginning and end. Was it armored?
It has like metal all over it. There's no windows.
No windows. Okay.
It's dark.
So no windows. And it's dark. And we'll include that the ship was dark, but it was also night. So there's no light, there's no windows, and can't see how it started, and you're not seeing how it ends. Okay. I think those are our major pieces. What could a ship represent? In general, any ship. Could talk about leadership, right? It's on the water. I mean, these are specifically ocean type ships. These are not, it's not a boat, so it's an ocean type ship. A lot of times ocean can represent the sea of humanity. Get that in Revelation. The ocean represents sea of humanity, many peoples. So it could talk about a world situation, talk about a government situation, could something that's going on that's affecting a lot of people. Ships is impacting lots of people. So it's something that has an impact on a lot of people. So it can be big business, can be government, can be churches sometimes are ships, depending on that process. But what's a sinking ship? It's going down, right? It's not going to last. So there's not last, there's destruction, there's time of difficulty. But what's in the dream, what's going on? I mean, there's a light, right? There is a way out of this, but there's a lot of danger, right? So there is a way out. Okay. Now, different ship at the ship launch. This one was a little bit smaller than the first one, right? If I remember correctly. Okay. So it's just important to remember it's not the exact same ship. So these are 4 different things that he's seeing and what's going on. So ship launch. Now, what we said about a dry dock, it's either in repair, it's being repaired, or it's just brand new and hasn't gotten out into the water yet. So, but more likely, dry docks are usually for repair. Repair or being built. So it's, something, a launch. So let's say it's something new. It's going out on a new journey. Something's getting started. Now, there's movement again on this one, but this one, does the movement seem positive or negative? It's much more positive. This is something worth chasing after, right? I want to be a part of this. But it's not going to seem as big or as impactful as the first thing. How about, we say empty ship, but we don't really know whether or not it was empty. What do we know about it? But why would it be, why do we think that it's empty? Yeah, so we know that there's no weight to it. There's no content. There's no weight to it. There's no real impact. It looks impressive, but there's no real weight to it. And what's the water line? It's how deep it's in the water. So on a ship, it's the level that'll actually impact whatever it's supposed to impact. So there's no weight to it, so it's not having the impact. And what's this? So no, or let's put less impact, because it's touching the water, so it's having some impact. So we can't say no impact, but it's less impact. And here's the important part. Why Ronald Reagan? Okay? Okay. In what arena? Yeah, it's political. Yeah, he was. He was considered a great communicator. The great communicator. Yeah. So no weight to it. Probably has something to do with political arena. Okay. Now in this one, you said you were sitting on a cliff. I think that's important. So this, the fact, it's huge. This thing is huge. But what would no windows be talking about? There's no vision, and there's no way for any light to get in, right? And everything's dark. So this is dark. There's no openness to God. It's not in the light whatsoever. This is dark. This is, evil seems a little bit too harsh when I look at the ship. Evil seems a little bit too harsh, but there's just no place for God in this thing. And there's no place for God's light to get into it. This is really dark. So let's just write dark again. We'll put that in there. Why is he sitting on a cliff? It would probably be even more impressive if you were on the beach, right? So why cliff?
Would that be like a place of protection?
Place of protection? I usually think of cliffs as risky. Because what if you fall off? What if we put a word ahead of that? I have no reason to put that other than revelation. It feels like revelation. So we'll hold on to that with a grain of salt. For whatever reason, thinking about this dream, sometimes dreams will have multiple layers. Like they'll have one level of meaning, but then they'll also have another level of meaning that kind of impact another sphere. I'm not sure. It kind of feels like that may be true. So I think that there may be a bigger sphere that this affects, but I wonder if this is also much more specific about different corporations that you've been a part of. You were in a sinking ship, and you had to scramble to get out of it. You knew that there was revelation. You knew God had a purpose in it. But there was definitely some concern there. There was a new venture that was going out, and you knew you had to pursue it. And if you didn't pursue it, and there was some concern, if we pursue this too much, if this doesn't work out, this is going to be really bad. But you just had to go after it. You had to pursue it, and you went after it. There's some other stuff that it looked bigger, but it just didn't have the impact. You realize it didn't have the weight to actually accomplish what they said that they were going to accomplish. And so it ended up being much more empty than what you expected it to be. And there's another opportunity, whether you've seen it or you've been in it, that seems huge, but you just cannot see what's going on. There's no revelation. There's no light on this thing at all. And you don't know how it started, and you have no idea how it's going to end. Does that make sense and fit into your life? Yeah. Yeah. Part of the reason why this was so empty was because of the political spirit that was going on. And this, it's going to require a risk for you to step into it. And there's no answer there. It's left with a question mark. You don't know if if the light's going to turn on, if you're going to fall off the cliff, or it's just giving you perspective. And the dream does not say. It leaves you there with a lot of questions. You're still in the dark as to how that's going to play out. It's a cliffhanger. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good play on words.
Does it have to be sequential?
Not necessarily, because you're not walking a path. It's just 4 scenes, 4 different things. And there's probably some overlap, actually, more than sequence. Just from the feel of the dream and a little bit of his response, just the energy, if you will, it feels like you're probably in this one and you're seeing this, or you're not quite seeing this yet. Feels like you're right around there somewhere. But again, you would know because you're in the situation. Yeah, I mean, it's again, he's observing, but he's also participating because he's not on the ship yet, but he's in the picture, and so he's in the picture. He's not on the ship, but he's in the picture. You see, so it is about something bigger than him. It's other than him. That's outside of him, but there's probably going to be some effect to him, or it's something that he's seeing. And sometimes, a lot of times, Cliff will talk about a decision. There's a risk. You got to take a risk on a cliff. And then the question is this fiscal cliff like capital F, capital C, or is this just talking about the risk is going to be a significant financial risk if it doesn't work out? That's the question. And again, like I said, I mean, there's no reason for me to put fiscal other than that popped in my head, kind of like Becky and Rebecca. So that popped in my head, and so I want to hold on to that with a grain of salt. I wouldn't put fiscal, I wouldn't say that it has to be this, because it feels like it might have something to do with finances. But, I don't want to put too much weight on that. Because it wasn't an audible voice. It's just a thought that popped through my head. And it might be the Lord. And right. But if this one was about a political spirit that was operating in a corporation, then this isn't talking about a fiscal cliff in the government. Because, I mean, you could bring an application. Like I said, sometimes there's multiple applications. So it may be applying to something in his own individual life, but also to a bigger sphere as well. Yeah, and especially intercessors and people with a prophetic call, that'll happen often, where your life will mirror what's going on in a bigger scale, because that's one of the ways that God speaks. And that Hosea, God had Hosea's life mirrored. God was telling him to do that, but Isaiah, Ezekiel. But sometimes we find out that our life is mirroring something that God is speaking to us about afterwards because we look back at it. That's not unusual. I mean, it seemed to, when I said it was about job situations, you kind of responded to that. But it also could be talking about church situations, ministry situations as well. So that's one of those things where you just ask the dreamer. And so I just wonder, is this also, can you see this parallel in some church situations you've been through as well? And see what they say. Does that make any sense to you? Do you see that parallel in church situations?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, combination of both. Yeah. Good. It's really good. There's a lot of cool things to learn from that. Those are fun dreams. It was so funny because as we're walking through it, until I started to say the interpretation, I was going much bigger. I was thinking, world, the U.S. government, or whatever, And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, wait a second. Let's bring. Maybe it has something there. That's still a possibility, but just kind of fine tune that. So very cool.